watching WION, and this is our show Inside South Asia with me, Dasani Athauda. Now, this is a show where we look at the top and trending stories of the region this week and talk about how it impacts your life. Here's what's coming up. Up on our stories today is a story from India. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh was on an official visit to the Maldives. On the agenda was the entire gamut of defence relations between the two countries. The Maldives is a crucial country when it comes to India's neighbourhood first policy. In this report, we take a look at why the Maldives is important for India's larger regional defence relations. And can this outreach counter Chinese influence?
The Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh on a 3-day visit to the Maldives. On the agenda, defence, security, maritime cooperation. Singh met with the Maldives President Ibrahim Mohammed Solih, the Foreign Minister Abdullah Shahid and his counterpart Maria Ahmed Didi. For India, the Maldives is an important maritime and strategic partner and part of India's neighbourhood first policy. The visit saw the laying of the foundation stone for the MNDF Coast Guard Ekta Harbour by Singh and Didi. The development of the Coast Guard harbour and repair facility at Sifavaru are one of the biggest grant and aid projects from India to the Maldives. In a tweet, the Maldivian President's office acknowledged how this would significantly improve their maritime defence and security capabilities. India also handed out a fast patrol vessel to the Maldives government along with a landing craft assault. But India's defence ties with the Maldives run deep. In 2022, India gave the Maldives a coastal radar system. In 2020, India gifted the island nation a Dornier aircraft. In 2019, it gave the Maldives a patrol vessel and all the equipment for starting the MNDF Senaya military hospital. The Maldives is top priority for India in the Indian Ocean region to counter China's influence. The two sides regularly exchange high-level visits, and there are several ongoing bilateral exercises between the two sides, such as the Ekuvirin Dosti Ekta. India has helped the Maldives build training and capacity of its National Defence Force, provided a 50 million credit line for defence projects including the Utturu Thila Falu harbour project in 2021. In August last year, Prime Minister Modi and President Solih launched the Greater Malay Connectivity Project, a $500 million project financed by India that would link Malay to neighbouring islands. New Delhi is also undertaking customized training for the MNDF fire and rescue services in India. Key projects in the Maldives defence sector include the Composite Training Centre for the MNDF, the Coastal Radar System, and the construction of a new Ministry of Defence headquarters. The two sides also conduct an annual defence cooperation dialogue and have a cyber crime pact to counter transnational crime and terror in the Indian Ocean region. Singh's visit comes just a few months ahead of the elections in the Maldives. The China-India choice has always split the national elections in the country. The current government under Solih believes in the India First policy. But the country's main opposition and former President Abdullah Gayoom and his Progressive Party of the Maldives have run an India out movement for years, favouring China over India. The strength of the Maldives-India diplomatic relationship has depended on who is in power in Malé. India certainly believes engagement remains the key for its wider vision for Sagar, security and growth for all in the region, along with its neighborhood first policy in order to ensure its strategic edge in the Indian Ocean region.
As chair of the G20 Summit, a slew of events are currently underway in India in the run-up to the main event in September. A model G20 Summit is currently underway with the participation of students, with perhaps the biggest tourism attraction in the region or even the world, and that is Kashmir.
If there's paradise on earth, it's in Kashmir, says the poet. The brilliance of the mountains and valleys and streams, pushed aside by the spectre of terrorism, now takes center stage again. An ideal setting for discussion on harnessing tourism potential. Representatives from 20 countries and a series of discussions under the rubric of tourism. That's the plan for the 22nd and 23rd of this month. Call this one a dress rehearsal, a dry run of sorts. Taking the place of global delegates here are 60 school and college students. Discussions ranged from tourism priority areas to sustainable tourism practices and gender equity in the industry.
We have to discuss various issues regarding the tourism, regarding the sustainable tourism, women in tourism, and also the effective promotion of the tourism. We think that it is going to be very much beneficial for Jammu and Kashmir. It is the first of a kind event happening in Jammu and Kashmir, and it is going to open different avenues for us. People are going to perceive us a little bit differently than they do.
Enabling exposure for local students and youth is just one part of the mission. Kashmir's natural wonders have long been the jewel in the crown of India's tourism potential. A renewed push has been the focus for the past several years now.
This is a great opportunity also for us to showcase Jammu and Kashmir and the various tourism products of Jammu and Kashmir to a global audience. It gives us an opportunity to make sure that J&K is projected and promoted in the world.
The Model G20 Summit organized by the Department of Tourism was held in Srinagar for the participants to better understand the workings of G20. It also provided a platform for these participants to hone their negotiation as well as diplomacy skills.
At the Tulip Garden in Srinagar, the largest in Asia, the buzz has returned over the last year or so. The garden recorded the highest ever tourist footfalls in March-April. Another tourist hotspot, Gulmarg, is packed with tourists again. Numbers had dipped in 2017 and 2018 and are back at peak levels. 2.5 million tourists visited in 2022. A big tourism focus for the J&K administration in the aftermath of COVID restrictions is now showing results. On the banks of the iconic Dal Lake in Srinagar, a heavy rush of tourists alongside a conspicuous security presence perhaps says it all. People are back even alongside persistent, though now clearing, security concerns. The G20 meet here later this month will have that and much more to talk about.
A recurring image in many parts of the developing world is the pollution of rivers purely due to industrial waste. Bangladesh's Burhi Ganga is one such symbol of malaise running through the region.
Mohammad Jahid calls the Burhi Ganga river along which he has grown up his mother. The name itself means aged Ganga. He started working boats here when he was in his 20s, when the river was a lifeline for the capital city of Dhaka. In so many ways, he says, life and living have gone downhill in the last 2 decades.
That time the water was clean. We could eat and bathe in it, and the water has become dark. This time of the year, about 80% of us face trouble with our eyes. Our eyes become red, swollen, and we can't see properly.
Jahid is among hundreds living along the banks who look at the Buriganga for a livelihood. Change came in the name of development. The river, its flora and fauna, everything has given away too little more than a stagnant rot.
This is the place of birth of my father and myself. About 20 to 30 years back, this river water was good. I used to catch all different kinds of fish. Now the river has become polluted due to discharge from urban and factory waste. Now there are no fish in the river.
Bangladesh today prides itself as being the world's second biggest garment exporters after China. The industry booms. But there's been a huge flip side. Untreated sewage, byproducts of fabric dyeing, and other chemical waste from mills and factories located close to the river. They flow virtually uninhibited into the Buriganga. Polythene and plastic have piled up on the riverbed, making it shallow and forcing the river to change its course. Corrective pressures from activists remained mired in local politics.
All the solid waste from the industries, from the hut bazaars as well as from the households. There is not a single waste dumping chain is available or provided by the city corporation. So that means all these riverine communities, they are discharging their solid waste to this river. So the solid waste and plastic pollution is happening on the river Buriganga.
There are 250 sewers that empty into the Buriganga. A water treatment plant remains overworked or underused. A 1995 law making effluent treatment plants mandatory is flouted, often openly. Yes, there are regular inspections and checks, but implementation of any rules remains short-lived. Bangladesh's Buriganga is an emblem. The problem finds echoes in water bodies across the region and beyond. Development doesn't always mean that things get better.
Shifting our focus to Nepal, the Himalayan region's economy has taken a downward turn. Economists pointing to quarterly data show that the country has now slid into recession for the first time in 60 years. Inflation has hit 7.4% and the cost of living crisis has escalated to new highs. Prices of goods, particularly essential commodities and land, are increasing at an exponential rate. And making things worse is an economic slowdown. GDP growth numbers have dipped for 2 years in a row. Manufacturing, construction, and trade have all taken a beating.
Because of not having enough investment in the country. And second is our policy, fiscal policy and monetary policy, which are very loose, and those loans actually diverted into unproductive sector. And we have increased the unproductive expenses, recurrent expenditure in budget.
The forecast of 2.16% growth from the National Statistics Office is even lower than the projections of the multilateral financial institutions such as the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank, which have projected a 4.1% growth. GDP growth was at 3.86% in 2022 and 2023, and at 5.61% in 2021 and 2022.
Never in the known history, Nepal's economic condition has been as severe as it is today. The country's main economic indicators, foreign exchange reserves, liquidity at the banking, the financial institutions, government revenues have all shrunk up at an unprecedented level. The gap between the trade of balance and the prices of consumer goods have skyrocketed. And still not single concrete steps have been taken by the government to fight the crisis that the country is facing. Economists have suggested the government to rule out new financial reforms and invest it wisely in the country. Saloni Murarka for WION World is One in Kathmandu, Nepal.
Talking about Nepal, do you know what is the biggest revenue earner for the country? It is Mount Everest. The Nepal government earns tens of millions of dollars purely through trekking and allowing permits for trekkers in its 24 peaks. So far, Nepal's government has issued permits to 1,046 climbers at its 24 peaks, bringing in a total revenue of tourism to $5.6 million, out of which $5 million came from Mount Everest alone.
So I'm proud of it in that sense.
Now I want to fulfill my dream, which is to climb Everest. I want to make a positive impact in the world and raise awareness about disability.
Disability awareness.
Meet Hari Buddha Magar, the first double amputee who's aiming to scale Everest this season. The Gurkha veteran grew up in the shadow of the Himalayas. Ironically enough though, he decided to turn his childhood dream into a reality only after he lost his legs. Magar was injured in an IED blast in 2010 while serving in Afghanistan with the Brigade of Gurkhas, a unit of Nepalis recruited into the British Army.
After losing both of my legs, my aim became to see what I could do physically. It opened my mind and I attempted everything I could.
Attempted everything that I can put my hands on.
With a specially designed suit, grips attached to the shortened prosthetics and silicone liners under his thighs to prevent frostbite, Magar is all set for a monumental task. The 8,848-meter tall Everest has captured the human imagination for generations. The tallest peak in the world has been attracting hordes of mountaineers from different countries. The main climbing season on Mount Everest is April and May each year. A second climbing season runs from September to November but is not as popular. This year the numbers are set to hit new highs too. Nepal has handed out a record 463 permits to climb Everest between March and May, beating 409 in 2021. This has sparked fears of a traffic jam when teams make their final ascent through the death zone to the summit of the world's tallest peak. The death zone is the name used in mountaineering for an altitude where there isn't enough oxygen for humans to breathe. Climbers who ascend beyond 26,000 feet or 8,000 meters on Mount Everest enter the death zone. Overcrowding and high numbers of relatively inexperienced climbers are cited as key factors for tragedies on Mount Everest. 9 people had died on the peaks in 2019, making it one of the deadliest seasons in years. This week too, a US citizen lost his life while trying to scale Mount Everest. The exact cause of his death is not clear. Home to 8 of the world's 14 highest peaks, Nepal is often criticized by some Western climbers for allowing anyone who can pay the $11,000 fee for a permit to climb Everest, a charge the government denies. Reaching the top of the world may be immensely rewarding. It's a challenge that comes with huge risks. The right preparation and skills, the right time for the ascent are perhaps the biggest requirements, along of course with a huge helping of luck.
On to Pakistan. Interestingly, there has been a spurt in demand for lizard oil that is known to be a cure for sexual illness. Just the sight of it is said to turn the client dizzy. Here's more.
What comes to mind when you see a lizard? Some may find it gross. Some may just get scared and run away. And some even opt to keep it as a pet. But what if we tell you the reptile is being used by some Pakistani men to enhance their sex lives? This aphrodisiac makes you, well, dizzy. This is Rawalpindi's Raja Bazaar. Passing through, you'll encounter many a hot-blooded man seeking a cold-blooded cure for sexual wellness. Freshly rendered lizard fat, marinated in scorpion oil and garnished with filaments of a fiery red spice. And there you have it, the so-called ultimate and most importantly claimed cure for erectile dysfunction.
This oil is like gold for those suffering from erectile dysfunction. This is the king of all oils. It is meant for removing body pains and weakness in men. The only difference is whether the bottles are small or large, and everyone buys according to his own means.
But who are the people who subscribe to this magical cure? Meet 62-year-old Sultan Mahmood, a user for 3 decades, who says the oil works like a miracle.
After using this oil for 10 to 20 days, all those with weak veins get new power after using the oil. The oil does not trigger any skin disease and works well.
But the bigger question remains, does the oil have scientific backing?
Absolute rubbish. There's nothing, no truth to it. There is no evidence, there is no research, there's nothing whatsoever which indicates or proves that this could be helpful. It's very unfortunate. Very, लोगों को पागल बनाया हुआ है.
2 of my acquaintances had problems after using this oil, and they developed skin allergies and the top of their heels got badly cracked. It was the reaction to this oil.
The meek lizards, measuring up to 60 centimeters as adults, are plucked from the plains of Punjab and Sindh provinces as they peep out of their burrows to sunbathe.
We tighten the noose over their burrows to catch the animals, and then we pull the lizards out. We break their backbone after pulling them out of their burrows and then sell them.
Unfortunately, once the lizards' backs have been broken after capture, they have little chance of surviving in the wild. The lizards used to make the oils are classified as vulnerable or threatened with global extinction.
The overexploitation of this species will soon lead them to the verge of extinction, even though the business is being promoted online as well. It is being used for sexual purposes.
Demand for the oil is high in Pakistan, where Viagra is banned and social taboos prevent many from seeking out medical treatment for erectile dysfunction. Although traditional recipes for the oil have existed for centuries, the ban offers healers and vendors fertile space to capitalize on a flourishing black market enterprise.
That is not the only bizarre story coming from Pakistan this week. Here's a look at a unique belly dancer who is smashing stereotypes. Take a look while I see you in a week. Signing off, I'm Dasani Athauda.